Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniXTCG, and I know, for a long time I've been saying I've been waiting to figure out what the perfect bit of Gundam content would be for me to hop back into the scene. However, I really was sitting here thinking, we've got 4 more months until this game drops, and I didn't want to burn out of it. So I want to make sure that when I make content for Gundam, it's concise, it's clean, and it's thought-provoking. So here we are, we have all the beta set. We've been playing around with it for a couple months now, and I think it's time. Let's look into the keywords that we have so far and really dig deep into figuring out, kind of how they have shaped the game so far and what we can look forward to going into set 1. So with that being said, I hope you guys like this sort of content, and if you do, make sure you slam that like button or maybe even join the UniX fam today and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, let's hop into it. So the first keyword that we're going to touch upon is repair. Now repair just straight up says at the end of the turn, this unit recovers a specified number of HP. And yes, there's always going to be a number after repair. Now the cool thing about this is in this game so far, there is no real cut and dry removal. And hopefully that will change once we get red in its full totality. But as it stands, you have the soft removal of white bouncing cards back to hand along with their pilots, for better or worse. And then most of the destruction in this game, if not all of it, I'm pretty sure actually all of it, comes from slamming these units together, attacking into other units, blocking certain units, and this is where you end up trading stats between AP and HP to see what stays on the board. If they both leave, and yeah, it's just the flow of battle. However, repair starts to change that math. You start recovering HP at the end of battle, and that allows your cards to have more longevity than your opponents, leading to you having a bigger board, or a board that is more resilient, able to press through your opponents and then into their shields and or bases. And this is going to be a huge thing. Now, just to put that into perspective, you could have your opponent having a 2/2 unit that just attacked, and having this very card on the board and attacking that 2/2 unit, you're going to deal it 3 damage to its 2 HP, destroying it. It's going to deal 2 damage to your 4 HP, and then at the end of your turn you're going to repair those 2 damages off, and that's going to be something that really changes the tide of exchange. However, just looking at this keyword, you do get to see that there is quite a difference between Repair 1 and Repair 2. Our Repair 1 card is often feeling pretty negligent, and there are going to be effects in this set that you can kind of pile onto that, having a ball droid next to it, having side 7 kind of make a pseudo Repair 1 in order to make those Repair 1s feel better. But you can note that on cards like Gun Cannon, you're looking at Repair 1 and often feeling like Repair 1 it does little in the face of adversity on the battlefield, whereas Repair 2 often is clearing off half of an attack to a full attack. And I think that is something that really will be felt as we get into set 1 and we see more repair effects. Now the thing about this though is looking at this beta and seeing that the difference between Repair 1 and Repair 2 is so vast, I think it's safe to say that Repair 2 is probably going to be the upper limit of repair that we get, because Repair 3 is going to turn entire cards into invalidated attacks. You're going to be able to chump not weenies, but actually sizable attackers, and then just Repair 3 at the end of the turn, and I don't really see that happening unless we get some crazy stuff like maybe one day they do G Gundam and Dark Gundam has Repair 4 or something, because that kind of makes sense thematically. But I do think that repair is a very powerful mechanic, and so the dev team is probably going to try to use that sparingly from what we've seen from the beta. But at the same time, these compounding effects do work. Side 7 may have less HP than a normal base, however side 7 makes Repair 2 Repair 3 essentially, and that's a huge boon. So I do think that repair is a very strong keyword, and I do think that I will be keeping my eye on it, because if the dev team ever steps out of line with repair, you're gonna see a field that refuses to go down unless you bring some heavy heat into it. So yeah, looking forward to that. The next keyword that we are going to talk about is blocker. And yes, it is a simple keyword, but in a game like this where you are trading the HP and the AP stats, blocker can be more terrifying than ever. You get this guy and you put a pilot under him, and he is likely jumping in this color, jumping up to a 6'1" or 6'5" attacker, or sometimes even a 5'5", depending on what you put on, and that's going to be devastating. When your opponent just wants to get some damage through to a shield, they can't turn a 1-2 sideways, a 2-4 sideways, without being met with the crushing, staggering stat difference on a card like this. A big beefy blocker being able to just block, destroy your attacking card, and not even perish itself. Pair that in with the fact that there are blue cards like Side 7 and like Ball Droid that can repair other cards, and you could potentially be looking at a very, very, very spongy, resilient, just like Juggernaut of defense. Now, the thing about blocker though is that so far in the beta set, we've seen that quite a lot of white cards have blockers, and this is kind of giving me pause, because if you guys have been playing enough with the beta set, you can see that sometimes just gumming up an entire board with decently sized blockers is a path to victory. There's not too many things that get around blockers, and like I said before, without the beta set having hard removal, a lot of these blockers stick on the field until they've made their successful trades. So this, at the end of the day, is a huge keyword, and as simple as it is, it's probably one of the best keywords in the beta set so far. Now, will it come to be one of the best sets in the game so far? Only time will tell, as we have little to no knowledge about set 1, and by little to no knowledge, I mean absolutely zero knowledge. However, we do have 2 keywords in the beta set that do put some like straight up pressure on the blocker keyword. The first of those being the third of the big 3 of these title cards, which is Breach. Breach says that the unit, when this unit attack destroys an enemy unit, deal the specified amount of damage to a card in that opponent's shield area. And this is pretty interesting. You can attack a shield card, or you can attack a shield card and break it, right? You can attack into a shield card and be blocked. But when Breach is involved, it's really rough because you're piercing through the blocker. And generally, when Breach is involved, you're actually taking a body with it. That's what the effect entails, taking a body with it, and then you're smashing the shield behind it. And if Wing Gundam is any indicator, there will probably be some pretty beefy units with Breach, because Breach seems to be a very big, like, just proprietor of the Wing, like, just the Wing Gundam just archetype. You're seeing it on this, you're seeing it on Shenlong, you're seeing it on Heavy Arms. I cannot even outwardly say without lying that I think that there's not going to be just cards with Breach in it. We've already seen when it comes to set 1, we've already seen art for Wing Zero. Some of the pictures, if you go back to my launch event, my world premiere event, you see that there is a cutout for Death Scythe. We are getting more Wing cards, and it would be silly to think that they won't have Breach on them. But Breach is going to be able to punch through a blocker and just go through the shields. Breach is also going to be really rough because in a lot of games, removal is often played at the cost of forward progress, but Breach allows you to do both. Swing on a card that they had already swung with the last turn, and then Breach will make sure that damage transfers over to the shields, allowing you to be put further ahead. So this is one of the cards effects, or this is one of the keywords that's really, really, really going to help get around these pesky blockers now and in the future. Now, speaking of a keyword that can help you get around blocks, this one directly gets you around blocks, and it is High Maneuver. Now, so far, we haven't seen any cards, any units that just tote High Maneuver without any outside help. But what we do have here, we have the Char, Asnable, just like pilot, right? And he says attack during this turn, this unit gets +1 AP, and if it is a link unit against High Maneuver, and that means this unit can be blocked. This is a serious skill, and I often wonder, looking at cards like this, how hard the dev team has rated this as an asset. And what I mean by that is no unit so far just has High Maneuver. They just don't. We have the G Fighter allowing you to give an Earth Federation or a white base unit, I believe. I think it's Earth Federation or white base unit. It's a white base unit, I think. High Maneuver. You have Char providing High Maneuver to a linked unit. And then I do believe that you have, are there any more? I'm trying to think about this. because you have, I'm going through my beta, my beta assets. You literally have that one. That might actually be it. And when it comes to that, when it comes to this, I do think that this is something that you're going to need to handle with a very, 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 very light hand. You do not want high maneuver to be given out to a bunch of cards. It could be disastrous. High maneuver on too many cards invalidates an entire other keyword. So you want to make it something that you can only get, you know, through jumping hoops. And I knew there was one more. We have the translation for Sinanju. That was translated a long time ago from some stream across the pond, and that one has high maneuver, but I think only when paired or linked. It's something like that. And so you're really looking at this space where this like card, this keyword actively can just bypass walls of blockers. Your opponent can have 5-6 blockers on board, and high maneuver will punch and they won't be able to do anything with the bodies they have on field. And because of that, you really have to look at this keyword. And I think that, like, once we start getting this, because personally, my personal opinion is that white is one of the strongest colors in the beta. And if this is just a taste of what's in set 1 in the starters, I assume that white will be one of the strongest colors going into set 1, which in my opinion makes high maneuver one of the most valuable keywords going into set 1. That's my personal opinion. But in the beta, we haven't really been able to utilize it, because realistically, there's only so many things that Shahar Aznable links with right now. And on top of that, when it comes to the G Fighter, he's locked to, I do believe, white base. And let me check that just to be sure. But if G Fighter is locked to white base, that once again puts him in a position where he's not doing the most. Like, G Fighter is not doing the most against other, just like in other archetypes. It's harder to splash G Fighter, because when you splash G Fighter, you're sitting there like hoping that you link correctly, well, not link correctly, I meant to link up with the effects over into, you know, the correct traits. So looking at G Fighter, because I finally have pulled him up, G Fighter does require white base team units. So yes, he's not splashable. You're not hitting with the Earth Federation, because we know Earth Federation is straddling both Unicorn and the original Mobile Suit Gundam. But essentially, that kind of is the point I want to get to with high maneuver. If they ever go buck wild with high maneuver, we are going to be sitting here looking at a deck that can just push through damage, and we will hopefully need to have good removal in red to see this actually not just like completely fold somebody's game. So moving on, because high maneuver is kind of speculative, seeing that we barely have cards with it on there. The next thing I want to talk about is burst. Now, I'm not a fan of card effects coming from your life. I am not a fan of card effects coming from unknown zones. I think that it is not a lot of skill involved in that. I think it is variance at its finest. You have cards that you cannot plan for or account for, but when they happen, and both players just have to move in stride. I think that's not very skillful. However, this game also has something else I don't like, which is cards from your life going to the trash or the drop or anything like that. Because sometimes you can have a card in the deck that you don't want to put at 3. You have to put at 2. Well, you want to put at 2 because it's not good enough to be at 3, but you still want it situationally. And if one or both copies of those just end up in your life, you are going to get screwed over out of a tech card simply because you played the game. And I don't like that. However, burst is an effect that triggers when a card is revealed from your shield zone. Now, there are a couple ways this works, literally a couple. Actually, no, it's a few. Few is 3, couples 2. And I think that they handle these pretty well making these. First, you have burst activate this card's main. Or there's a burst effect that maybe may be a watered down version. This is Witch and the Bride, and it probably has the best burst effect in the game that's not the next 2 or down the veins of the next 2 we're about to go to. But so far, you have this card and it just activates its main. Bouncing something with 5 or less HP, that's a lot of units. That's some paired or linked units depending on the unit and the pilot. And I think that this is pretty cool, but this is what I'm talking about when I say this isn't a very skillful application of effects. You literally get rewarded for just sitting there and chilling. Don't really like that. However, moving on, you have the next type of burst, and this is a burst that I do appreciate. Burst, add this card to your hand. Pilots are an integral part of your game, but if you fill your deck with too many pilots, you won't be able to really move, mainly because a pilot cannot be played without a unit to be paired with or linked with. Therefore, you might want to run a little less than pilot, or less on the number of pilots in your deck, and if you do run less of them, it would suck to know that they go to the trash every single time they get hit from life. So every pilot having burst, adding this card to your hand, excellent way to make sure that you don't have to build your deck clunkily, because pilots are that important to this game. And then you have the third type of burst that we've seen so far, which is deploy this card. And this is having bases in your life or your shields and then having them pop out and be deployed just because they were hit. This is actually very, very cool. It's cool in the sense that it's a little added layer of defense, but just like the burst play this card, I don't necessarily enjoy the fact that sometimes you can be in a completely losing position and then have a base pop out of your life, and it gives you the extra swing protection to 2 swings that you needed to stay alive, or vice versa. On the vice versa side, you do have to sequence correctly. Always swing with your non-5 AP cards first, because if a base comes out, you want to be able to one-shot the base before they can get use from it their following turn, or before it becomes more than one swing. That at the same time, though, I do think it is another layer of added variance. You do have a card that gets played out of nowhere that can potentially save you, and I think that that is a little less on the side of skillful play. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is the when paired keyword. I think that when paired is really, really cool because this game effectively has what most people would call summoning sickness. A card cannot attack the turn it is played unless you link it with a pilot that fits these traits. However, when paired is a very, very cool effect because it affects the board whenever you do it. You could play this card, right, and not have a link unit, but you can have a any pilot, and you can put it under here and get the when paired effect to rest something, opening it up to being attacked. You could have it with a white base team trait pilot and get the link. But because a link is technically a pair, it's like it's paired when a pilot's under, it's linked when it matches. So if you actually do link this, you can tap something, you can rest something with 2 or less HP and then go on and attack it with this or something else. I think that when pairs are very, very cool because it's pair and not link, you have so many more options and avenues to put this together and to get these effects, get the most out of your cards. Now, this is the other side of that, which is during pair. This is more of a static effect. You're not getting an activation when you pair something. You're getting an effect, a different part of this card popping off as long as you are paired. This is gaining breach. This heavy arms gains breach when he is paired during him being paired, which means as long as he has any pilot under him, he will have breach. Now, so far in this game, there is no way to interact with a pilot without interacting with the unit, but I do think in the future there is room in the dev room floor to add, like, you know, like a forced ejection or like a cockpit snipe or something like that, to where you can maybe bounce a pilot or you can like destroy a pilot without touching the unit. That would allow them to keep the body, but imagine you attacking with a heavy arms thinking you're gonna get breach, and then they respond to the attack by removing the pilot and then you lose breach. I think that leaves a pretty cool little window of operation, and I would like to explore that in future sets. But during pair seems both strong and weak, because you have to swing, it has to, you know, like, it's vulnerable. It is vulnerable. Like I said, we don't have any cards that interact with it yet, but I do think that in a way it is kind of cool because you can set this out as just a blank card and know you're not going to attack with the next turn, but your opponent has to be wary, because what happens next turn when you put a Hito Yui under it, when you put a Wu Fei under it, when you put an Amuro under it, when you put a Kira under it, and then attack. Putting something like a Kira under this and attacking, minusing something by 2, and then being able to breach 3 once you've cracked over it, that's crazy. I like that. That turns this thing into a 5/5 with breach 3, and that's actually a very, very, very cool mechanic. Now, the next one I would like to go over is the destroyed keyword. Now, destroyed is kind of interesting, but it is once again destroyed, which means that this particular keyword has a very open weakness to white, which is known for bouncing cards. You could be paired and have this like, you know, swinging, and your opponent could hit it with the Hakam Endymion / Mulaflaga card, bounce this to hand, and now guess what? You do have it sent back to your hand along with the pilot, but you do not get its destroyed effect. And I think that's actually something that we should note. You could have this card pinged with gun cannon or gun tank, and then bounce back with Darbalde in a white-blue deck. And yes, you gave them their cards back, but like I said, you were not getting your token, and you have to replay this guy the following turn. So yeah, there's a lot that you can like do against the destroyed keyword, and I think that white has a built-in protection just with the way it's built. That being said, destroyed has plenty of options. Crashing into something with this while paired allows you to make a token as long as they cannot just ping that token for 1 HP with their gun cannon, or their, I keep saying this gun tank. You're gonna be good to just swing with it next turn. 3 AP is kind of strong and rough to trade into. You're gonna be losing something or putting it halfway into the trash zone. However, there is another kind of cool thing. When you look at something like Unicorn Gundam Unicorn Mode, this has a destroyed effect, yes, but destroyed effect is uniquely linked to the pilot. If there's a linked unit, return the paired pilot to its owner's hand, then discard 1 card. So this is really cool because this kind of has a built-in protection. Because it's uniquely linked to the pilot, if your opponent bounces you, you're getting the pilot back and the unit back. If your opponent destroys this, you're getting the unit back by the pilot back by discarding 1 card. So it's interesting to see that even though it's the same keyword, they do not share the same weaknesses. And I think that this is a really, really cool look into how cards could be crafted in the future. So watch out for that. Destroyed isn't the same on KO that it could be in other games that feels kind of bad when you're up against bounce and bottom deck effects. Although if we do get bottom deck effects, I'm assuming the pilot will still go where the unit goes, and bottom deck will feel really bad because you'll lose both cards still. Now, the second to last effect I wanted to go over is Deploy. Deploy is on play. We should all know about this. And in a game with Summoning Sickness, Deploy is a strong effect because you're getting an effect that applies the moment the card hits the board. Not the time it can attack, not next turn, not if you can link it or pair it. You're getting it the moment you play it, and that makes Deploy a quintessential effect. Not much else to say there. And then the last one I want to talk about is Attack. This is Deploy's stronger yet slower brother. Usually you're going to see, from what we know in the beta, that the on-attack effects generally are stronger. When we get them, they're pretty strong. But the cost of this is the fact that you do have to either link them to swing the same turn they're played, or you have to wait for them to survive the following turn, which right now may feel sort of easy in the beta set to a degree, but we never know what we're going to get in terms of removal and destruction going into set 1, which can make a card like this even more risky. So yeah, those are the keywords that we have so far in the beta, and I want to know what your thoughts are on them. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about these keywords, which ones you think have the most potential, which ones you were excited to see more and more of in the future, and I cannot wait to make more Gundam content for you guys. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, and if you love it, maybe even join the UniX fam today, hit that subscribe button, join the Discord, talk about this in other places with me. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, whether it be Dragon Ball Fusion World or Gundam card game. And the last thing I want to do here is give a special shout out to the people that give the extra oomph and keep this channel afloat. That's right, the Patreon members, we're bringing it back. And yeah, first we're gonna shout out the Realm of Extras. That's our top tier. That's the Big Daddy Flapjacks, the Beer R's, the Brother Bears, the Bryce R's, the Dallas S's, and the Daniel Ins of the world. Thank you guys, and for everybody else in there, thank you guys for holding it down. We're going to be putting out more and more content for Fusion World as we go through the regional season, and then on top of that, once we start getting Gundam in its full fleshed outness, we'll start putting stuff up for there too. Thanks, and I'll see you later. Bye.